Static pressure is the single most misunderstood number in fan selection, and the confusion costs real money. People quote a fan's airflow as if it were a property of the fan. It is not. Airflow is what happens when a particular fan meets a particular system, and static pressure is how you describe the system's half of that bargain. Start with what pressure actually is here. Air in a duct carries energy in two forms. Some of it is pressure, pushing outward on the duct walls in every direction, and that is static pressure. Some of it is motion, the energy of air actually traveling down the duct, and that is velocity pressure. Add them together and you get total pressure, which is what the fan really produces. The distinction matters because they trade against each other. Speed the air up and static pressure falls, slow it down in a widening duct and static pressure rises again. Nothing was created or destroyed, the energy just changed form. This is why a measurement taken in a narrow section reads differently from one taken in a wide section of the same duct carrying the same air. Now the part that catches people out. Static pressure is not a fixed property of your system either. It rises roughly with the square of flow, so it is a curve, not a number. Push twice as much air through the same ductwork and the resistance does not double, it roughly quadruples. That single relationship explains most of the surprises in fan selection. Let us put numbers on that, and let me be explicit that these are illustrative figures to show the arithmetic, not a specification for any product. Say your system needs 250 pascals at 2000 cubic meters per hour. Ask for 3000 instead, a 50% increase in flow, and the resistance becomes roughly 250 times 1.5 squared, which is about 560 pascals. Not 50% more. More than double. Where does that resistance come from? Every component in the path contributes, the ductwork itself through friction along its length, every bend and transition through turbulence, the filter, the coil, the damper, the grill at the end. They add up in series, and the total is what your fan has to overcome. Two of those contributors change with time, and this is where designs go wrong. A filter's resistance rises steadily as it loads with dust, often to several times its clean value before anyone changes it. A coil fouls. If you select a fan against clean filter conditions, you have designed a system that meets its duty on the day it is commissioned and never again. There is a second trap in how the number gets communicated. A fan's published pressure is normally total pressure or static pressure at a stated test condition, and a system's calculated resistance is normally quoted as static. If you compare a static system figure against a total fan figure, you will overestimate what the fan can do by exactly the velocity pressure at the outlet. On a high-velocity system, that error is not small. So how do you measure what you actually have? Static pressure is measured with a tapping perpendicular to the flow, so the moving air does not push into the sensing hole. Total pressure needs a probe facing into the flow. The difference between the two readings is the velocity pressure, which is why a pitot tube gives you all three from one instrument. Here is a practical check you can do on an existing system. Measure static pressure immediately upstream and immediately downstream of the fan, and add the magnitudes together. That total is roughly what the fan is working against right now. If it is well above the design figure, something in the path is more restrictive than the drawing said, and no amount of fan speed is a substitute for finding it. This is also why the same fan gives different airflow in different installations, and why a catalog airflow figure with no pressure attached is meaningless. A fan that moves a large volume freely at zero pressure may move very little through a real duct system, and a fan built for pressure will look unimpressive on an open bench. So when you specify, give both numbers together and say which kind of pressure you mean. The airflow you need, the total pressure your system imposes at the dirty filter condition, and whether that figure is static or total. Two numbers, clearly labeled, turn a guess into a selection.